Hello everyone and welcome to this painting time-lapse. Today I want to show you how I paint my watercolor original artworks for my Patreons. This is the artwork which my Patreon pledged for the $95 reward, and she gets this original artwork, free fine art prints and 3 art surprises. And those watercolor pieces are really one of my favorite artworks to do, because I can be really creative and just paint everything that comes to mind. When I paint oil paintings, they are mostly for gallery shows, and I have to think that what could I paint for a motif that will sell, or which size I have to paint it, because some shows have size restrictions or it might be too expensive if I paint it too big. But with watercolor I can just do everything on a really small scale and put in so many details and so many abstract layers like I want in them. So these are my favorite things to do. And also I really like to do fairy and fantasy art, so I can be super creative and super kitschy if I want, because I'm very lucky that my patron who this artwork is for is also in love with fantasy art. So this artwork was really fun to do. And I started it by transferring the reference onto my watercolor paper, which is Fabriano paper, and I choose a motif I found on DeviantArt. This was a stock photo by Miranda Hetman, and she had a lovely fairy stock in which I found motifs that I really love to paint. And when I do watercolor pieces, my goal is not to copy the original artwork exactly or make it as photorealistic as I can, because then I could just print out the photo. So for me it is important that when I have a reference to try to get the most out of the reference that I could. And there are so many different options and possibility with every reference. I could possibly paint the same photo over and over again, and the results would be all the time different with every try. And with this piece I wanted to focus on her face and have everything else very roughly and abstract and loose, so that as if you would look at her face and everything else blurs out because her face is so beautiful and it catches your attention, so that everything else doesn't matter anymore. And I also love the abstract edges and shapes that watercolor do. And one of my influences, or just artists that I really love and who always impresses me with her work, is Eyck Kavanagh. She paints watercolor on gessoed board, and she totally understands what are the most important things on a painting. So artists that don't understand it just paint everything, or also if they understand it, they paint everything for a large painting because they planned it to. But many artists don't know what to paint or what are the really important pieces or areas of a painting, so they just paint every detail out and lose focus on the important part. And Eyck Kavanagh just paints exactly the things that are important, and everything else just floats beautifully in abstract watercolor layers. And I hope that my watercolor pieces will maybe someday go more in that direction, so that I know on which areas I will focus and which areas are super important and which areas are not so important. And so I started with filling out placing all the major colors onto the surface. And I of course have to start with light colors, because with watercolors I build from light to dark. So I just filled out every area in nice pastel tones, so that it is a joy to paint when everything is already placed with its colors. And I couldn't start a painting by just begin in one area and work my painting around that area. I have to have everything already look like approximately look like the finished painting. So that is what I did. And then I focused on her face by placing an underlaying color of her skin. And when I focus on one area, I don't really take so much attention that everything is smooth and perfect. I rather prefer some of the abstract patterns that emerge, even if they are in the face. I think that makes it beautiful, so I just leave them there and do not pay attention if it doesn't look perfect. And after that, I used my new colored pencil from Polychromos, and they worked beautifully. I oftentimes, because I have so many color pencils over the time I collected them all, before I start the painting or I start the color pencil process of the painting, I take all my color pencils that I will need for the painting and just place it next to my paper, so I have them at hand. And I'm also limited, so I don't just grab another pencil and then I'm totally confused what to do. So I know, okay, I have like those 12 colors, they should be enough to mix the skin tones of her face, and then I'm focused and concentrated and don't get distracted by all the other color pencils. And for her face I used a couple of brownish tones and a couple of skin tones and also some darker violet and blue tones that I recently bought. You can see them in my artist haul video that I did recently, and they worked perfectly like I expected them to do, so I'm super happy with them. And then my next trick, of course, some of you know it already, are my Luminance pencils from Caran d'Ache. And they are the #1 pencils to blend in the surface, because with the Polychromos you get a relatively grainy surface and it doesn't look so nice on your painting. So what I do is I use my Luminance color pencils, which I have in, I think, 3 or 4 colors. I think a white, skin tone like color, a grayish color, but also a warm grayish color, and a black. But I oftentimes just use the skin tone grayish color and white color from Luminance to blend in the surface. So that is why her face looks very, very smooth in the end, and you don't see much grain. This is all down to the Luminance pencils, which I absolutely love, but they are pretty oily and thick, so they are only my last layer. When I want to have a subtle variations in her skin, I do that with a Polychromos or just also with regular color pens, and then on the end I blend, or I add a blending layer of Luminance, and you could really place it over every other color. It's super opaque and it is very good to get a smooth surface. If you like to see more painting tutorials from me with commentary both in oil and watercolor, then go to my Patreon page and pledge the $5 reward. I have a lot of painting tutorials there on art supply, on art materials, on just my opinion. You can see a lot of progress photos from me. You can see what I do every day in my studio. I answer your comments and it's really fun over there. So I would love to see you there if you're interested in this. Or of course, if you like to have an original artwork from me for an affordable price, then you can also pledge the $95 reward or my portrait award, which is $450. But I also have more affordable options for finer prints as well, so check out my Patreon page. And if you liked this video, I would be super happy if you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. That would be awesome. I hope you have a just fantastic day and you are super inspired to paint and draw, and I hope I see you in the next video. Bye bye!